America First has been running advertisements warning people that the left is being racist against white people. Let's watch this.
When did racism against white people become okay? Joe Biden put white people last in line for COVID relief funds. Kamala Harris said disaster aid should go to non-white citizens first. Liberal politicians block access to medicine based on skin color. Progressive corporations, airlines, universities all openly discriminate against white Americans. Racism is always wrong. The left's anti-white bigotry must stop. We are all entitled to equal treatment under law. America First Legal paid for this ad.
Isn't that something? So that's an ad running on television in Georgia. Here's what the person who shared the advertisement online said. It was airing as part of a buy in Georgia where a high-profile Senate and gubernatorial campaign is being waged. The spot, the person said, was running in the Augusta, Savannah, Albany, Columbus, and Macon markets, as well as in Tallahassee, Florida, just south of the Georgia border. Fact-checking the claims in the ad from Politico, the claim that Harris said non-white citizens should be prioritized for disaster relief has been mischaracterized. According to fact checks, another fact check found the comment from Biden about COVID relief ignored the entirety of his statement, as he was referring to how minority-owned businesses have been disproportionately impacted by the economic crisis. Other efforts by America First. Earlier this year, America First Legal filed a lawsuit in the state of New York against the Department of Health guideline for COVID-19 treatment that stated non-white race or Hispanic Latino ethnicity should be considered a risk factor as long-standing systemic health and social inequities have contributed to an increased risk of severe illness and death from COVID-19. They also filed FOIA lawsuits requesting federal agency plans to comply with a Biden order to advance racial justice. Citing this same Biden administration order, the group has sent political mailers that state Joe Biden and left-wing officials are engaged in a widespread racial discrimination against white and Asian Americans, even though it's against the law. Among other moves, America First filed a class action lawsuit challenging the president's COVID relief bills program to provide aid to socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers. So this should come to no surprise. But the group was launched by longtime Trump supporter Stephen Miller, someone who worked with Donald Trump, who has a history of advocating for hardline immigration and socially conservative policies. As a Senate aide, he would cite white nationalist websites in his emails with conservative-leaning outlets as a top policy advisor for Trump. Miller was also one of the most influential advocates for stricter immigration policies, including separating children from their parents on the southern border and a restriction on travel from some Muslim majority countries. So it should come to no surprise that this is a character behind this ad. But I really want to unpack the racism against white people, because as a white person, I understand that many white people don't understand this. But someone's reaction to oppression and someone's reaction to systemic racism is not racism itself. It is a reaction to that. And I want to bring in Jackson here. What are your thoughts on this nonsense?
Well, my initial thoughts is that that's actually the first picture, the one that we initially showed of Stephen Miller, where he was smiling and he didn't have on because he always has on like a permanent F-boy face, like he's trying to look sexy, like he's squinting his face and stuff like that. But my thoughts on this is that it's so stupid that you only can take it as parody. Unfortunately, millions of Americans really feel this way. And these are the people that are being driven to the polls more and more. And they can't hide their own racism, because the fact that they even made this commercial and then, America first, okay, white people first, and then on downward down the scale of colored pigmentations down, and then black people last, you know what I'm saying? So again, unfortunately, these people actually believe this. They think that, and the stupid thing is these people still got vaccinations. They still had access to everything that they wanted to get. But I guess that their feeling is that other people had access to it too. So things weren't as timely as they should have been or whatever. So it's stupid, but again, unfortunately, you got to take it with a little bit of seriousness, because these people vote.
Yeah, I think about how we can reach people and like break down this kind of thinking, because people are susceptible to fear mongering when they're not doing well, right? If they're not paying their bills, they don't have food on the table, they can't keep the lights on, they can't pay rent, you're in a place of survival mode. And if someone's saying like, hey, we found someone for you to be mad at, sometimes that can sound pretty good. Then if you had all of your needs met, you might be a little bit more critical of the stories you're being told. And I think how we break this down is, hey, systemic racism is actually a problem for everybody, because we're just camping out at a racist city council member's house who is spreading anti-black racism, trying to disenfranchise black voters. And there weren't a ton of white people in the community who were coming out to the protests, but they were supportive and did want Kevin DeLeon to get out. But I think about what it takes to communicate that we need collective liberation and everyone has a stake in this. And I really think about police budgets taking up such a large proportion of cities' entire budgets, all of the public funds. In Los Angeles, it's about $3.2 billion. We just covered a story in Uvalde where it's about 40% of the city's budget. And when that much money is going to things like policing, we know communities of color are over policed. We know black people are disproportionately impacted by policing, and that's all intentional and that's all by design. And funding the police is a part of a racist system. But those $3.2 billion could be going to your kids' schools. Like if you're a white person living in Los Angeles, you also have a stake in getting these racist people out who are funding the police. You have a material stake in that. And so I think to break this down, we have to say, hey, we're not gonna be able to set things right and actually have public goods delivered by our government unless we come together. But ads like this really make it hard to communicate that message when people only think about things from a place of fear and racial division.
Well, and to close off with what you said is so much of what we see in the fear is just stemmed from propaganda alone. The #1 news show in the country being Tucker Carlson, where night after night he's stoking fear about people coming across the border, people joining the Democratic Party, literally pushing the great replacement theory and attacking people who say that it's a conspiracy theory and that it's not totally real. So a lot of their fear and a lot of their the prejudice that they think they're experiencing is all imaginary. And a good point on that as well in terms of policing budgets, like out here in Jersey, like, it's a small state, so a lot of the townships are right next to each other. One of the more wealthy ones is called Montclair. There's really no crime going on there. There's some nice shopping going on, but really nice houses. It's a nice area. And you can see like literal like police tanks riding around, the entire brand new, new SWAT vehicles, and how much of the budget goes towards just protecting property, and how much of that money could be going towards better things. So, white people in this country as a whole are in no type of racial danger, but the ones that think they are, it's because they watch shows like Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, absolutely. This idea that like you are losing your power and privilege in society, and that somehow should feel like oppression, rather than, oh, us all being equal is actually something good, and that would be a much better society for everybody to live in. Unfortunately, that's not the state of America.